Hi everyone, this is Andrew Prima, Ukrainian American, reporting from Kiev. In today's podcast, week 65 of war in Ukraine, and this is the last week of May 2023. In today's podcast, Russia keeps performing daily drone attacks over Ukraine. The war dynamics are changing. And surprisingly, Freedom of Russia Legion, allied Ukraine armed forces, attacked the Russian town Belgorod. So, on May 21 22nd, Russian occupation forces launched 16 missiles of various types and deployed 20 Shahid drones in attack on military and civilian infrastructure facilities in the city of Dnipro on the night of May 21st and 22nd. Ukraine's air forces shot down all of the drones and four of the cruise missiles. So here's a quote from Ukraine's air forces. Personnel and assets from the Skeet East Air Command and Pivden South Air Command destroyed four KH-101 and KH-555 cruise missiles and 20 Shahid drones on the eastern and southern fronts, respectively, during the overnight attack from May 22nd to 22nd, from 21st to 22nd. The Air Force reported that Russia launched a total of 16 missiles of different types and 20 Shahed 136 131 drones in the overnight attack on Ukraine. So, the Russian aggressor state launched four air to surface KH-101, KH-555 cruise missiles from two 95 ms bomber jets above the Caspian Sea. Also, five KH-22 cruise missiles from long-range Tu-22M bomber jet above the Azov Sea and Russia's Kursk region, and two Iskander-M ballistic missiles from Russian-occupied Crimea. Also, Russian launched S-300 guided anti-aircraft missiles from Russian-occupied territory in the Zaporizhia region and 20 Iranian-made Shahed drones from the southern and northern fronts. On May 22nd and May 23rd, the next day, on the night from May 22nd and early morning May 23rd, the Russians used up to four Iranian made Shahed kamikaze drones to strike Ukrainian territory, all of which were shot down by Ukraine Air Defense Forces, reported General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. During this night, Russian occupation forces launched 16 missiles of various types and deployed 20 Shahed drones in attack on military and civilian infrastructure facilities in the city of Dnipro. On the May 25th, 2 days later, the night attack of the Russian Federation air defense forces shot down 36 out of 36 Shahed drones all over the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. An air alert was announced in a number of regions of Ukraine, including the western regions, due to the threat of Russian drone attack. Russia sent a group of kamikaze drones of the Shahed type to the capital. All targets in Kiev were shut down. Explosions were also heard in Kharkiv. On the night on Thursday, May 25th, the Russian invaders attacked mainly the western regions of Ukraine, said Yuri Ignat, a representative of the Air Force of Ukraine Armed Forces. According to him, at least 10 drones were destroyed in the air responsibility of the armed forces. 222 drones were destroyed in the air responsibility of divisions of Zahid, 4 in the south. In the Chernivtsi region, three residential buildings and power lines were damaged due to attack. The consequences of the fall of the downed drones, 140 homes in the Dnistrovsky district are disconnected, said the head of Chernivtsi administration. The particularly a Russian attack on Ukraine on Thursday, May 25th, was that the enemy tried to launch drones from other directions, which they had not used before, said the head of the Joint Press Conference of the Southern Operational Command, Natalia Heminuk. In addition to Kiev, the target of the attack could be infrastructure and military facilities in the western regions of Ukraine. It was clarified that, the launch of 36 barrage munitions to the northern and southern directions. All targets were knocked down, as Air Force Commander Mykola Lishuk reported earlier. Supposedly, the enemy aimed to attack critical infrastructure and military facilities in the western regions of the country. Of them, three were shot down over the Mykolaiv region and one more over the Odessa region. There were no hits in the area responsibility of defense forces of southern Ukraine. The capital of Ukraine, the last Sunday, celebrate Kiev Day. Kiev was founded more than 15 centuries ago, when Moscow didn't even exist on the map. According to the official numbers, Kiev was found in 484, while Moscow was found in 1147, making Ukraine's capital 665 years older than capital of Russia, Moscow. Yesterday, the Russian Federation, as usual, which is on Sunday, sent their best wishes to Kiev on the holiday by launching the largest drone attack since the war started in February 2022. During the 5-hour night attack, the aggressor state sent 54 Shahed drones to strike the Ukrainian capital while its citizens slept. Ukraine Air Defense Forces have done a great job and shut down 52 drones during the assault. Kiev officials said that airstrikes were carried out by Iranian made drones and took place over several waves. The air raid alert lasted more than 5 hours. Kiev Mayor Klitschko said that a man was killed and a 35-year-old woman was injured during the attack. Unfortunately, the same night, one of those drones reached the Zhytomyr region. One Shahid drone reached the infrastructure object, and maybe it was an infrastructure object because several people confirmed that multiple consecutive explosions shook the whole city after the blast, leading to the breaking of windows across the city of 300. The air raid sirens sounded for 5 hours while the city was shaking like it was at the epicenter of the earthquake. Luckily, there were no casualties. But despite all that, we keep smiling the Russian terrorists' desperate faces. So, due to the recent events, the war dynamics have changed. In May that week, Japan hosted the last meeting of the heads of 7 states G7 summit, including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Great Britain, and the USA, as well as European Union in so-called G7 format. Broadly speaking, the key agenda was certainly to strengthen the unity of the democracies of the greater Indo-Pacific region to counter increasing pressure from China. However, a new impetus to renew this unity has created the need to confront the common threat posed by Russia's war against Ukraine, which is approaching a decisive moment. President Volodymyr Zelensky, who decided to make a long trip to Hiroshima, emphasized the urgency of the task of expanding Kiev's support so that it could repel Moscow's aggression. Western leaders and the invited guests paid a lot of attention to the expansion and strengthening of the sanctions regime against Russia, since sanctions were the tool in which the G7 was very successful. So, As of today, the reduction in Russian oil and gas revenues for the first 4 months of this year is only 52% compared to the same period of the last year. Russian companies use all possible channels and offer large discounts to support export volumes. However, the result was a sharp decline in their profits as well as an abundant supply on the world market. In truth, the price of natural gas in Europe has returned to pre war levels, which is a huge achievement. The Ukrainian army, at the same time, surprises. Besides all this economic pressure, the Ukrainian army surprised Western experts with its ability to quickly learn new complex weapon systems, and this is once again confirmed by the interception of a mixed air group heading towards Ukraine from the Bryansk region on May 13th. The Russian military chose not to acknowledge the loss of an Su-34 fighter bomber, Su-35 bomber, and two Mi-8 helicopters, but the names of the 9 pilots who died in this battle were revealed by an attentive journalist. Russian propaganda tried to declare the attack on the Mi-104 Patriot battery systems that Ukraine received by the Kinjal 47M hypersonic missile and claim a great success. But the damage to the Kiev's air defense system turned out to be insignificant, while the supposedly invisible Dagger missiles were effectively intercepted. The Russian elite was so outraged by this fiasco that the three scientists who developed this hypersonic technology were arrested on charges of treason. A key new development in the position of military aid to Ukraine is the organization of European fighter jet coalition, which will deliver several squadrons of F-16 fighter jets to Kiev. One issue that prevented the summit in Japan from deciding on the necessary strengthening of the Ukraine Air Force was related to the risk of possible strikes inside Russia directly, and Kiev agreed to exercise appropriate restraint, even though it was clear that every cross border firefight in Kharkiv or Sumy region provides for hitting targets on the territory of Russia. The training of Ukrainian pilots and logistical preparation at Ukrainian military bases will inevitably last for months. For months. Therefore, the future supply of F-16 jets will most likely matter only in the air battles of the next phase of this war. The new signals are coming from the Japanese summits about the readiness to arm Ukraine with all the means necessary for victory not only in the long war, but also in the decisive offensive. Every small tactical success caused a strong renaissance in Moscow, and every sign of inept and disorganized leadership increases the demoralization of the Russian armed forces, making defeat more likely than possible. According to the dialectic of the war, gradual, minor changes in a multitude of variables lead to a sudden pivotal climax, and Ukraine has apparently come very close to mastering this formula for victory. On May 22nd, which is Monday morning, Ukrainians woke up to the unexpected news of a military operation taking place across the border in the Belgorod region of Russia. As reported, the responsibility for the invasion was claimed by two Russian opposition military movements based in Ukraine, one the Legion of Freedom of Russia and the Russian Volunteer Corps. They said the attack marked the beginning of campaign to liberate Russia. The fact itself deserves attention and may be part of the Ukrainian first operation before the widely expected counteroffensive. By exposing the weakness of Russian virtually undefended, undefended borders, Ukraine must succeed in forcing Putin to reluctantly withdraw troops from Ukraine to defend his country, to defend the territory of Russia. At the official level, Ukraine denies its involvement in the Belgorod border raid. However, although the advisor to the president of Ukraine, Mikhailo Podolyak, stated that Ukraine has nothing to do with this, he didn't refrain from mocking the Kremlin. As you know, tanks are sold at any Russian military market, and undergoing guerrilla unit are staffed by Russian citizens, he tweeted, clearly alluding to the outright lie used by Vladimir Putin during 2014 takeover of the Crimean Peninsula. These mocking comments were widely interpreted as confirmation that Ukraine is now itself using Russia's hybrid warfare strategy against the Putin regime. Podolyak was not the only Ukrainian who enjoyed the fact that Russia, as many believed, got a belated taste of its own medicine. As news of the invasion of Belgorod spread, Ukrainian social media flooded with memes proclaiming the creation of the Belgorod People's Republic, playing off early Kremlin disinformation about the civil war in Ukraine and favorably comparing the speed of the advance in Belgorod to the progress of the Russian army in the east of Ukraine. As expected, few people in Russia found this funny. Instead, reaction ranged from anger and outrage on Kremlin's television to dismay at the apparent ease with which Ukrainian backed Russian militants were able to cross the border and infiltrate the Russian Federation. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Wagner Group, the outspoken of the Russian mercenary group, used this incident for his next regular attack on the Russian military establishment. He said, "As far as I know, the military doesn't burden itself with strengthening our borders." Although the invasion of Belgorod undoubtedly raised the spirit of Ukrainians and sent Russians into a mild panic, it was not just an example of Ukraine succeeding in the art of trolling to a world class level. The attack has very real implications for Russia's national security and is a huge personal embarrassment for Vladimir Putin, who prides himself on his strongman image. After all, what kind of strong ruler is he who can't even protect the border of its own kingdom? It's still too early to predict that exact nature of the Russian response to the events in the Belgorod region, but it seems inevitable that any response must necessarily include strengthening the entire Russian Ukrainian border. In order to do this, Moscow must find additional soldiers and weapon systems to strengthen the border, which stretches for about 1,300 kilometers. In condition where the vast majority of available Russian armed forces are already deployed in Ukraine. This will be a difficult task for Russian forces. Indeed, British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said in February that 97% of the Russian army is already in Ukraine. Any effort to strengthen defense along Russia's border with Ukraine would likely mean a reduction in that presence. The lack of military equipment in Russia recently became known due to the exceptionally modest celebration of May 9th, traditional parade where it was cancelled in a number of cities and the single tank took a part in the flagship event on the Red Square in Moscow and showed a Putin and the Russian Federation as an embarrassment. The manpower situation in the Russian army is unlikely to be much better. Russia's losses in the first 6 months of the invasion of Ukraine were so severe that in September 2022, Putin was forced to begin the country's first post World War II mobilization in September 2022. However, Many of the additional 300,000 troops mobilized late last year have already died. US officials estimated that Russian losses since December were at 100,000 deaths. So recently, to the recent estimates, the battle for Bakhmut took already approximately only battle for Bakhmut took approximately 100,000 lives of Russian soldiers. And since this war started in February 2022, Russia lost over 200,000 people. Ukraine will prevail. Ukraine will win this war and will take all the territories back. And we will get all the borders recognized by international community, the borders of 1991. Thank you for listening. If you like our podcast, please share with your friends.